Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the first book of Kings, that is Melachim Aleph. We are about to begin the second chapter. Because these chapters are long and involve many different stories, I have to divide them up into several podcasts. Otherwise, the podcasts would go on for quite some time. So this will be the first half of the second chapter. We are now going to read of the last final parting words of David to his now established son, King Solomon, who has been declared as David's rightful successor. And we're going to read the words. This is the end of the life of David, whom we've been studying together about for the past several months together through the book of Samuel and now the beginning of the book of Kings. So let's read his parting words. Vayikirvu yemei David lamus. And the days for David to die, the time for David's death came close. Vayitzavet shlomo beno leimar. And he commanded his son Solomon as follows. He gave him the following instructions. Anochi holech b'derech kol haaretz. I am about to go along the way of the world. In other words, I am going to pass on. V'chazakta v'hayisa li'ish. I need you to be strong, and I want you to act like a man. So David is giving his son advice on being a king. But first, what do you need to do? V'shomarta et mishmeret Adonai Elohecha. You need to keep the guard over the special mission of the Lord your God. Lolechet b'darchav. You need to go in His ways. Lishmar, to be careful to keep chukotzav, His laws, mitzvotzav, His commandments, umishpatav, and His rules, v'edvosav, and His testaments, or where that means where God testifies and says you must act in a certain way because such and such will be the consequences, and so on. Kakasuv b'tzoras Moshe, as they are written in the Torah of Moshe, of Moses. Lima'an taskil, and that has to be your mission. In other words, how are you going to remain a king? Only by remembering that you're not just any king, but you are a king whose job it is to fulfill God's mission on earth. So you make sure you have to listen to those rules. Lema'an taskil, in order that you should be successful, eskol asher tasa, in everything that you do, ve'eskol asher tifneh sham. That's rule, and no matter everything that you do, and wherever you turn, whatever direction your kingship takes, the only way it will be successful is if you remember the special nature of your mission. L'man yakim Adonai es dvaro. This way, God will fulfill His word, asher diber alai lemar, that He spoke to me, saying. David is implying that the promise God made to David is conditional. Im yishmru vanecha, not implying, he's saying it. Im yishmru vanecha, if your children will keep and guard et tarkam, their ways, l'lechet lefanai be'emet, to go before me in truth. In other words, not just to say the words that they're following God, but in actuality live a life that contradicts that value. But actually, be'emet, in truth, go before me and really truly live the life that I have commanded you to live. B'chol levavam, with your entire heart, to v'chol nafsham, and your entire soul. If you're truly dedicated to that path, lemar, when God said, if they do this, God said, lo yikaresh lecha ish me'al kisei Yisrael, there will not be a man, a king from the throne of Israel, of your descendants, taken off of that throne. In other words, your line will continue, your monarchy will continue so long as they remain dedicated to this path. So this is number one. David is giving him advice. Number two is going to be, it's going to sound a bit like settling scores. It gives, this is the first two verses which we just read together give us a very noble notion of a king under that following God's law, living a proper, appropriate life, and fulfilling the special mission of the people of Israel. However, This next few things kind of sound like settling scores. However, remember, David is giving him advice as to how to keep his control over the kingship, over the monarchy. And there's some practical advice that he needs to know, because there are potential enemies that can potentially ruin things for him. So the first potential enemy he turns to is Yoav. Now, Yoav, remember, was David's star general who was loyal to David, right? Very loyal to David throughout David's lifetime, but loyal with a significant fault. Every time David tried to make peace with his previous enemies, the two most famous cases are Avner ben Ner, who remained loyal to King Saul's son, Ishbosheth. However, he came to make legitimate peace, and David wanted to make legitimate peace. Yoav didn't trust him and killed him. Also, Amasa, who fought under Avshalom in Avshalom's rebellion against David, but after Avshalom was defeated, David raised Amasa to be general of his troops and brought Amasa into David's family in order to heal the breach after these civil wars that had occurred, and David wanted to bring them in. Yoav did not trust Amasa either and also killed him. So Yoav, while he was acting in loyalty of David, he was acting directly against David's wishes, and in the end, furthering ruining David's plans to reunite the people. This type of, and remember, when Yoav was invited to the party of Adoniyahu, when Adoniyahu tried to declare himself king instead of Solomon, and Yoav was one of the people that went along with him. So Yoav is a problem, is a big problem. So therefore, David says as follows: "V'gama toyadata, you also know, Eis asher asali Yoav ben Tzruya, that which Yoav the son of Tzruya did to me. Asher asa, that which he did l'shnei sarei tzivos Yisrael, to those two great leaders, those great military leaders of Israel, Avner ben Ner, v'la Amasa ben Yeter, to Avner ben Ner and Amasa the son of Yeter, vayahargem, and he killed them. Vayasem demei milchama b'shalom, and he traded war for peace. We had an opportunity for peace, and he ruined it. He decided he'd rather fight, he'd rather make war, and he'd rather cause more divisions among the people. Vayitain demei milchama, and he placed the blood of war and battle under his belt rather than peace. And his everything, his entire being was fighting, war. And he did not understand the importance of bringing peace. Do as your wisdom teaches you. In other words, deal with him. Remember that you can't trust him, because that's the kind of person he is. Your job is to build a united monarchy where all the tribes will work together and be together and live together in peace, not in war. And do not allow his old age, right, to go down in peace towards Sheol, towards at the end of his life. Sheol sometimes refers to hell. In other words, don't let him die in peace. Make sure he receives the punishment due him, and be careful of him, because he can ruin things for you. V'livnei barzilai hagiladi, and then also you remember you have to reward those who are good to me. The children of Barzilai from Gilad, ta'aseh chesed, I want you to deal kindly with them. V'hayu ba'ochlei shulchanacha, they should be of those that eat at your table. Kichein karvu elai bevarchim mipnei Avshalom achicha, because when I was running from your brother Avshalom during the rebellion, they brought me close, they brought me in, they saved me, so repay them well. V'hinei imcha, there also is with you another guy, Shim'i ben Gera ben Hayamini, the Benjaminite Shim'i ben Gera, who was, remember when Avshalom was rebelling, Shim'i ben Gera saw an opportunity to try to whip up the old animosity and reestablish the Benjaminite, the Benjaminites, the tribe of Benjamin, among whom he was a respected leader, and reestablish the throne to the descendants of Saul. He Mimi Bachurim, he's from the place of Bachurim, who Kilani Klolonim Retes, and he cursed me and made fun and so on when I was running Biyom Lechti Machanayim, when I was passing through Machanayim. Vuyarad Likrasi Hayardain. However, afterwards, when he saw me win the battle, he started begging me to making himself loyal. He was obviously a turncoat, obviously the kind of person that just goes along with the winds. Whoever is powerful, he tries to flatter up to them, and he's a potential big problem because he's still somebody who has some sway over the people of Binyamin, and he can cause serious trouble. However, I swore to him, Badonai Lemor, in my Mischa B'charav, that I would not kill him, because at that moment, I needed to bring people together, I needed to bring peace, and he was there to welcome me back. So I promised not to harm him, but that promise does not extend to you. Vi'ata, and now, al tenakeu, do not allow him to be forgiven completely. Ki ish chachamata, you're a smart person. In other words, you realize that he's a significant potential threat. V'yadata is asher tasalo, and you will know how to deal with him. V'horata sevoso b'dam sha'ol, and make sure that his old age, the end of his life, goes down in a bad way. Don't let him go off in peace. Again, potentially he can be a serious problem. So these were David's instructions to Solomon. Number one, remember your special mission. Remember that as king, and for you to last as king, you need to be following the footsteps that God has told you to follow in, and that is how this monarchy will last. And number two, remember the people who are potential threats, and remember to reward the people who are your supporters and who are my supporters. Vayishkav David im avotov, and David passed on, laid down to rest with his fathers, which is the language of death. Vayikaver bir David, and he was buried in the city of David. The V'hayamim asher malach David al Yisrael arboim shana, the amount of time that David was king over the people of Israel, arboim shana, was 40 years. B'Chevron malach sheva shanim, he was the king for 7 years in Chevron. U'v'Yerushalayim malach, and in Jerusalem he was the king shloshim v'shalosh shanim, for 33 years. U'Shlomo yashav al kisei David aviv, and Shlomo then sat on the throne of David his father. Vatikon malchuso ma'od, and his kingdom was strongly established. No one disputed the fact that he was the king, and Shlomo sat as king. Now that concludes the long and illustrious and incredible career of King David, who established the united monarchy, united the people, brought them together, established a capital in Jerusalem, and now he handed the baton to Shlomo, his son. And in the next podcast, we are going to begin reading about the events of Shlomo's career, its rise and its fall, his successes and his failures, which we will study in the next podcast. Thank you so much for studying this portion together with me of chapter 2. Looking forward to finishing this chapter together and the entire book of Kings.